Hi everyone, Nadia here, and welcome to Friday Spiritual Advocacy. My name is Nadia Davis, and I am an author, attorney, and Kundalini yoga teacher. And I am the blessed mother of 3 amazing sons. And my book, Home is Within You, was written with them in mind. It is transformed into an opportunity to offer the skills and tools that I was blessed to gain along my road of recovery from trauma and addiction with others that are suffering. And so the concept of spiritual advocacy came about in the sense that I knew that individual healing could be combined with advocacy for systems change to create a more equitable, compassionate society. Because indeed, we are not just the outcome of our own one-on-one interpersonal interactions. There are layers of family, community, and systems that shape our responses. And I was so blessed and honored to be on a book panel yesterday with the Trauma Research Foundation and to speak directly to author Stacey Haynes about her book, The Politics of Trauma, where these issues were discussed, and it was right up the alley of spiritual advocacy. And I'm encouraging you to please listen to that interview. It's on my YouTube channel, which is brand new and developing, but it's also on Instagram and Facebook. And it is at the core of what we are talking about. Spiritual advocacy begins with advocating for your own true self, your own spirit that is whole, perfect, and complete, and that cannot be changed by anything in this world. That takes personal commitment to a spiritual journey. When we can do that, internal shaming becomes less frequent. We become aware of our mind's attack thoughts that are based in fear and judgment, and we can start to observe those. And there are tools that I share throughout the week, beginning on Sunday's healing chat, as well as in a free Kundalini yoga class that's offered on Thursdays. Spiritual advocacy also includes that when we are in tune with our truth, we can stand confident with internal peace when others are projecting onto us. And we can simply observe their own finite life survival tools happening right in front of us and not respond. Utilize the healthy trauma responses that we have gained and become in a space of love where there is neutrality. That can lead to systems change. If we start advocating for more trauma-informed and healing practices for frontliners that carry the load of keeping us safe, as well as for survivors after they have touched the system, responses in the entire world can become more holistic, more compassionate. It all comes back to spiritually advocating for self that then emanates out to how we are treating each other. Today's special guest is the woman who created 7 Chakra Yoga. Her wisdom and all of the trainings and teachings that I gained at 7 Chakra Yoga with its whole entire community of people that live in a spiritual journey, constantly challenging themselves to stay connected to their truth. They are the reasons that on a daily basis I tune into a home within me that provides clarity and calm and allows me to observe my mind and others. So I'm pleased that we have special guest Priya Jain here with us today. I will bring continues with,
Hello,
hi,
hello. Thank- Really good.
how
Thank you for
are
the lovely
you?
introduction and beautifully,
Of course,
beautifully
I could go
presenting
on
the
and on.
idea of spiritual advocacy.
Oh, thank you. It's exciting to meet, like-minded people that have wanted to have this approach where there's always been this kind of missing link, and those that are frontliners that feel distraught, you know, when they hear about somebody returning to an unhealthy home or returning to a drug or their addiction. And it seems that there is, due to a larger collective movement that is spiritual, um, more conversations with these professionals who want to do more trauma-informed healing that includes this spiritual basis that isn't denominational. It's just real. It's about banning shame, and it's beautiful. The Trauma Research Foundation is a wonderful entity that's bringing professionals together, and the conversation I had yesterday with this author was great, and it's right up the alley of spiritual advocacy. And what's under development is some nonprofit. I'm not going to recreate the wheel. It's really bringing people and resources together. That is an arm of Home is Within You that would allow some support for some of these professionals to receive trauma healing and informed teachings, not only for themselves, but to provide it to some of the survivors so that we can, you know, close that gap and help people return to the truth of what they are and themselves. And many can't get there until they understand how their brain is working. And personally, that was my journey. So one thing that tapped right into that journey at the right time, after I had done some intensive trauma therapy and did more after that, was your �𝐴𝐵𝐸 course. And the topic today is grievances and reconciliation. And I think it's a perfect topic for this time of year. But as I was thinking about it, I thought, it all comes back to understanding how our mind works and its survivalistic nature, partnering with it, as we talked about the last time we were together, bowing to the 𝐸𝐜, to this infinite power beyond us. Yet prior to that, what hit me so strongly in taking your �𝐴𝐵𝐸 course was how early on in the Mool mantra, �𝓅𝓏 and 𝓅𝓏 were there. And I believe most grievances come, and thus an inability for reconciliation with self and with others, comes from this mind that is survivalistic, that has attacks and separates us from the infinite. Yet in the infinite space, there's no fear, but most importantly, there's no judgment. And so I just threw a lot out there, yet if you can expand on 𝓅𝓏 and just the whole idea and concept of a space where there is no judgment, there is no mind, I would love it. I can read the words. I cut and paste some of the words from the training and I read them now and then, and it's just so beautiful. And I realize this is a whole day of one word. Are you there? Let's see. Did it cut you off?
I think it did, and
Did
then
it
it
cut
brought
you
me
off?
back. So technology is great.
So I just was talking about how, I mean, my road of recovery included physical sobriety, the 12-step program, and a lot of trauma therapy. All along, the daily practices were in place in terms of creating safety within my body. That was the breath work and the sound and calming my mind. Yet the real work of calm and clarity and partnering with my mind was later. And when I took your 𝐓𝐸𝐸 course, I was saying how the words 𝓢𝓟𝓘𝓘𝓡𝓤𝓐𝓛, I just think it's so fascinating that those are so early in his initial interpretation of his experience and the infinite. I think Priya's connection is faltering us again. As we get her back on, I am going to actually read some of the words from her. Priya, are you there? Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me
Technical
okay?
difficulties.
It's funny how
Yeah,
the
I'm not sure what's
connection drops. I
happening.
can still hear you, I can still see you, but my side of the video just drops. So it's really interesting. But I heard everything you said. So I saw you speaking too. So it's really weird how the connection is just dropping. Yes.
Yeah, well,
We'll
technology,
flow with it.
it's a
We'll flow with
blessing,
it for
you
sure.
know. I'm gonna read some of the notes I took
Mm-hmm.
from the training. And again, it just blew my mind how one of the first, adjectives used to describe the infinite. It wasn't, glorious. It wasn't, one of the specific adjectives is
Mm-hmm.
without fear and without judgment. And in the training, and I just fully believe that grievances, are the disease of our world, and resentments and the workings of our mind just continue in this long pattern. But personally, for people watching, if there's ever been a concept of living without judgment of self and others, there would be no grievances. So you said, in this consciousness, blame, judgment, and revenge are non-existent. This state of nirvana can only be experienced when you are witnessing life and everything in it through the lens of 𝓚𝓚𝓚𝓚𝓚𝓚, which is the doer and experiencer of everything. And there's nothing but the self everywhere and in everything and in everyone, which means the person that I might be feeling revenge towards is the infinite, is the same as the infinite in me, acting out what it needs to act out in that moment. So is your take also that our world's grievances come from an unobserved mind? That's such a huge question. Yet expand on this peaceful space that a daily practice can tap us into to actually get
Mm.
unbelievably to a state. where there is no self-judgment or
Yes.
judgment of others.
I find that this is the journey of human consciousness. We are that state of awareness that is simply observing everything. And in that observance, we understand, we know that the other is me playing a role. And I am the other playing a role in their life. So when we are able to see that we are all playing roles in each other's lives, either to create challenges, so strengths can be developed, mastery can happen within us. In that process, we also understand that the joy that we receive from mastering those skills and overcoming those challenges, which is reflected off of each other, we get to realize ourselves. Right? So
right.
The Mool Mantra of the 𝐓𝐤𝐢𝐜 course begins with this explanation of who we truly are deep within us, and how this source intelligence experiences itself. Because it is the doer, it is the creator of everything. And if you were to take that into the micro of your own life, like you are creating with every thought, every intention that you're holding, every word that you're expressing, right? So it's like as within, so without, as above, so below. So if that is the larger source intelligence, a piece of that is in us, and we are replicating that exact same behavior, those exact same qualities, just on a micro level. So our journey is knowing who we are. We begin from there. And then as we step into our pattern, our blueprint of what we are meant to learn, experience, get challenged for, use our strengths and weaknesses.
And
yes, as we go
as
through and
such.
maneuver our way through that journey, we get entangled. That entanglement with others through grievances or challenges or traumas or upsets, that entanglement is unavoidable. It is a must. You know, it is designed to be that way. There's no mistake. But the journey is like, if I can get fully entangled, and then I can even get lost in those entanglements.
I love that you pointed that out, because everyone thinks, you know, well, what's wrong? That this is happening right now between me and this person, or me and that entity, or whatever. It's like,
no.
Embrace it.
Observe,
Surrender.
and ask yourself, what is it that I need to become aware of in this reflection about myself, or how human psyche operates? Understanding our own capacities as a human psyche is also part of learning about ourselves, right? So in that entanglement, somewhere, if we start to observe, like, what is my role and purpose in this relationship? When do I know when that relationship is done and complete? When do I keep dragging it on?
Its purpose, right?
When it's not really serving any more purpose in my existence? When do I create challenges for others because I'm upset with myself?
And not doing the work and projecting.
So in that projection, I mean, look how simply this happens. Like, let's say your significant other wakes up in a rough mood because their hip is aching, or they have a headache, or whatever, right? So that little discrepancy within them, that little challenge within them, can then come out as tones or words that can create an upset in me or the other or your child, right? And from there on, it snowballs into each one then projecting that upset, or trying to find a reconciliation for that upset, right? So that's why I say whoever has the greater consciousness in a relationship has the larger responsibility to manage that moment of unawareness, of unaware expression, right? So once It is stepping
And
back
it
and saying,
steps
it's not
back
about me.
and observing. That has done
Yes, not about
miracles in
me.
my life, Priya.
It's theirs. It's not mine. So I don't even take it.
Exactly.
I don't even digest it.
Yes.
If it's not mine, then it's not mine.
And isn't that the source of a
Mm-hmm.
lot of grievances? Is that we habitually will take it and carry it, and then it creates angst,
We
but
have a
we have a
choice. And
choice
that's what I call an
to
adult.
not do that.
An adult is someone who can manage their emotions. If you're not able to manage your emotions, you're not yet an adult. And that's okay. No problem with that.
Right.
Right? So the idea of nirvair means without judgment, without bias against yourself or anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
When you can see that this is a play that's happening and I have the discernment of knowing what is mine, what is my role in it. Once I figure out what my role in it is, I can then act on it. I can take conscious action on it, and I feel fulfilled. Then I don't grab onto any grievance. I don't grab onto any judgment against the other. But I learn about myself and I understand what the parameters of my existence are, my role is, what those boundaries are for the other person and where my boundaries lie. And I can joyfully allow the other to have their own space, and I can joyfully allow myself to have my own space. That's a practice.
You know, the term of codependency comes up in my mind in this, and often when we do take others' feelings on and either try to manage and the situation by changing their feelings, or have our own response and add fodder to whatever's going on. When we do that, we're denying another's ability to do their own growth. That was the only and the most important lesson that I gained from the codependency stuff. It's like, the more I take on and try to manage, the less opportunity that this person is, or the less likely they will go through their own searching and pain and reflection and growth. And
we also start to double down on our attachment to someone, because you have to remember that attachment doesn't just mean that you like something or someone. Attachment also gets created when you're averse to someone or you're holding a grievance against someone. You're attached to their energy.
Yes.
You're attached to their thoughts. You're always projecting how they might be thinking about this, or what kind of person they are, and how upset you are about them, or saying such and such about you or about someone else, right? So in that connection, even every thought that you have about another person is revealing to you the extent of your attachment to them, right? So to recognize, why am I so attached?
So this gets into the danger and the unhealthiness and the avoidance of that type of attachment. Say more, because most people see it as only when the person is in your life.
Yeah.
But the mental
attachment can be even with somebody who's already passed away. They're not even in this physical existence, and you can hold grievances against them for your entire life. But if that is the case, your soul is really just saying to you, honey, here's the raw material. What are the lessons that you need to learn about yourself? What are the strengths that you need to develop within you that you're trying to avoid through blame? So blame is really just a deflection.
Right. Yes.
Judgment is a way of saying, I am not yet ready to understand you. Because even if you don't agree with someone, you can still understand where they are in their consciousness journey. And once you locate them, that, let's say if a 5-year-old is behaving like a 2-year-old, like you say, something's off. right? A 5-year-old behaving like a 21-year-old, you're like, doesn't quite match, right? So in our minds, we might be considering somebody to be an adult. We might be considering that they are, same as you and me. But they might be a 5-year-old in their consciousness. So when we connect their behavior, we understand where they're coming from. They're coming from the 5-year-old within them. They're not coming from the 40-year-old within them. Once we understand, immediately there's a release. You go, I get it. No problem. Immediately there's I wouldn't even call it a forgiveness. I would call it a release.
Immediately.
Yeah,
this
it's
is
a
not
release.
my work.
Release your grievance, because you go, I get it. A 5-year-old can only behave like a 5-year-old.
Yeah, and so many people just carry that grievance, and it just, their soul is so buried.
So that's how
down.
we get to entangle ourselves in these grievances, right? So that's what makes the life, and that's a journey of life, so interesting, because places we shouldn't be entangling ourselves, we do that. And until we are ready to unentangle, we create blame and judgment.
And in the Course in Miracles, there's this one line, and it's the love holds no grievances. And, when we hold a grievance, we're denying our own true self. And
because we block our own energy. The other is not getting affected by our grievance.
Right. The grievance holder.
So that means every time we're suffering, we are blocking our own inner energy from flowing. Right? That's what creates suffering. Suffering is something within us that was just flowing joyfully, playfully, is somehow just blocked off. It's imprisoned. It's locked up. Just moving in a vicious circle. There's no freshness in it. It's getting stale with each passing day. And we feel the staleness when we are holding judgment, both for ourselves or for somebody else. You might be holding judgment for the past
and it's
you.
Attack. That's why I refer to the mind's attack thoughts. It is attacks. And, a state of internal peace is really, and health is really when there is none of that.
Yeah.
There's no attacks on self or others. The thoughts may enter, yet it's not, as you were explaining, an attachment. And eating, just consuming.
Yes, and so from the perspective of the Mool Mantra, when Guru Nanak, who was in a state of enlightenment, and he begins his entire explanation of who we are and how this existence operates, he starts by describing our real nature. So after we get entangled, at some point in some incarnation, we will have this inclination, and trauma sometimes becomes that catalyst for us to start to find ourselves. Is like, who am I? Like, why is there pain? Why is there suffering? I mean, everybody from Buddha all the way to Jesus, that was their entire journey. It's like, who am I? What is this all about? Right? So when that awakens in you, you start to journey backwards towards that core intelligence that resides within you. And you understand that I am the creator of everything.
Beautiful. I'm so happy that you're saying this right here now, because that is the piece and the message that can be and should be and might be in some places part of that trauma healing journey and therapy. And so
to me, trauma releases immediately.
Just wanted to point out.
Immediately. That's my personal experience. When you start to realize that this experience was a big catalyst for my own awakening. that I designed my life.
Yes.
As the source intelligence,
𝓐𝓓𝓥𝓘𝓡𝓤𝓐𝓛.
I designed my own life for these finite years, right? So this Karta Purak is two ways. Like me as the doer, as the creator of my existence, works two ways. One is from the infinite perspective, whereas the source intelligence that exists within me designed the course of my finite existence. It designed the experiences I'm going to have, right? And the second part of us being the creator of our life is, what do we do with the experiences that we are having? What choices am I making? Even in that, with every choice that we're making, we are creating, we are carving the path to what our existence will look like. I'll give you an example. I was working with someone the other day who went through a really nasty divorce. I think it lasted almost 4 years. Now that they're divorced, everything is settled. There is somehow this deep attachment to wanting to hurt the other person, to wanting to convince them that they were wrong, wanting to convince them that what they're doing to the children is wrong. Like there's constant vigilance, anger, upset, grievances that just keep escalating. Even the divorce has happened, like technically their lives are separate, but it's not separate in here. It is not separate in the heart.
Right.
So the energy is still consumed by the other person, right? So introducing an idea like, what would it take for you to let go? Or why is it that it is so difficult for you to let that go? Because our identity is locked in. He's making a choice in every moment to stay entangled. So he's now creating the pain in his existence, even though it actually doesn't exist anymore. Right? So that's what I mean, that we can actually be the creator of what kind of life do we manifest by our own choices at a scale of our finite existence.
And what do we and do we not have
Yes,
control
but
over?
that's how
also.
our ego operates. It has tons of preferences. It wants to be right all the time. And it wants to get validated and confirmed that it is right. And in that process, we just leave a trail of destruction behind us. We become blind to what it is doing to others who actually do love us. We start to ignore the love that is present in our life in order to cater to our grievances, which is, I think, the biggest tragedy as a human being.
Absolutely. I can say that these learnings are utilized daily and transformed the relationship I have with my children's father and the ability to co-parent. And it's hairy some days and it's hard, yet the energy of caring, the concerns and the same concerns that this person you worked with had in terms of the children, and yet it was wasted
and that is
energy.
Children a lot more.
Mentally, emotionally.
The constant conflict, the constant negativity, the constant name calling. It destroys a child's soul.
Grievances, and that's the destruction and the harmfulness of holding a grievance. Is now there's words you put to it. When it becomes an attachment, and like you said, here folks we think, oh, we're divorced, living under a different roof, but it can be stronger in those practical situations. So I'm really happy you pointed that out, because many people live with those types of grievances and attachment. And the weight of it.
That word nirvair really is it's like a long way off for most of us to realize it, right? Until we begin to exhale these grievances, figuring out to what extent and how long is that useful for me? Sometimes it's important to hold on to the grievance because it is trying to awaken something in you. When it is ideal, when it is serving you to remember what the other person is capable of, it is good for you, it's serving you. But dragging that on beyond that, once it's already revealed what it's here for you to do, dragging that on beyond that starts to actually destroy you.
And cause responses
trickles
and behaviors
into
that
future
create
generations.
more trauma.
Right? So it's not just you.
Exactly.
That is how this whole system is set up. We are constantly affecting each other.
Exactly. So with reconciliation, okay, we can't get to between two. Yet you pointed out right now how we can tap into a space individually in our solitude. We can connect to the undeniable existence of the infinite's power and tune in to a concept of 𝓍𝓚, where in that space there is no judgment. And by simply doing that, baby steps begin to maybe not releasing, but becoming aware.
There are many steps to coming
then
into that state of consciousness, or sometimes, like I said, like a course like Japji or words of awakening like Guru Nanak's words, they just drop you there. That's what I find so miraculous about like awakening sutras like these, is like it just dropped you there. It bypassed all the long process. No therapy either, just dropping you in there.
Just the sound and the words.
And then you all of a sudden awaken to the space that is just so
was that
quiet,
first.
So peaceful.
But this is a process, folks. That's where listening to the mantra and, sitting down and listening to breath is one baby step to begin the observation of thoughts, and particularly of grievance. And then slowly, the more that we observe, the more can be released. And then the more after release, the less trauma responses we'll have, let alone any responses, whether they're trauma related or not.
Your trigger point change. Because this is being stored in the neural network of our body.
And we respond with love.
It's deeply set up in our unconscious mind. So when we're triggered by, past trauma or grievances or upsets, we don't even know we are reacting the way we are reacting. Right? So that is why you have been advocating, and I've always been advocating, like just create some space for yourself every day. So you are able to sit and reflect on your grievances and not even judge yourself for having those grievances. I mean, that's not the purpose of this conversation. What we are saying is sit with them and reflect on them and say, what is this grievance trying to invoke in me? Do I need to get more courageous? Do I need to learn how to speak up? Do I need to learn how to speak up? Do I need to stop hiding? Do I need to back off? What is it that this grievance is asking me to do? What is it invoking from within me? But if I start to act on what it's asking me to do, it loses its grip on me. And I become free of the grievance, and the grievance actually becomes a tool.
And the choice is in one's hands and not entirely
And it stops
the mind.
becoming about the other. That's, to me personally, that was the game-changing moment. That was the turning point. When it stops becoming about the other and you realize, F it, I have a choice. I have a choice. I can just drop this now. I can choose to disassociate from the situation. That has nothing to do with my existence anymore.
What do I need
Correct.
to hold myself
That too.
responsible to?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
The separating.
What is my responsibility in the situation? How did my insecurity play a role in creating this situation? What
Right.
was I looking for here that I didn't receive? And because I didn't receive what I was looking for, I've now created a blame game. And then the
Right.
hardest thing to do
Hit it
in
on
this
the
entire
nail.
process is how do you communicate what you have realized, either to yourself and to the other person, so we can de-escalate the situation. It's a communication that is the key.
So this is in reconciliation. Right. How? I think it's subtle responses or no response. If it's with another individual, the baby steps, at least for me personally, were to just step
create
back
some
and not
space
respond and ask myself, what is going on right now and here? And then it just subsided and went away. That was after trauma work. The spiritual work now allows for the no response separation, but it allows words of understanding and love and response.
Because ultimately we have to realize my existence is about me. And what is the quality of existence I want to provide to myself? What am I manifesting as my life? And if every choice is playing into what I'm creating as my existence, then take responsibility.
Right. Get it.
Yeah. And what baby steps, like you said, I need to begin doing to change this around? With personal reconciliation with others can only happen when we forgiveness can only happen when
yes.
you have forgiven and understood your responsibility, and there's understood what your needs were that they were not met, understood what somebody else's needs were that created a reaction from them that were unmet. Right? So there's so many dynamics.
Starts from within
to arrive,
and the soul is trying to teach us something that we need to listen to.
Yes.
And it's that reconciling with the soul, with one's own, then the intuition will come, and we may not be able to put that insight into words, but our living will change.
And then ultimately you do get to a place after taking all these baby steps over the years where you just become a witness to this entire dynamic. The moment you stop playing a role in this dynamic and become a witness to it, now you get to that nirvana place. Like, I'm not experiencing any fear, judgment, bias towards this person. And once you see that, no, there's nothing, there should be, like the mind says, the ego says there should be, because they've done this, and this to me, that there's a whole laundry list of things somebody's done to us, right? And then you go, why am I not feeling the upset? And I personally found that moment was very upsetting when I found that I wasn't getting upset. Right? So it was upsetting to my ego.
It's so releasing and freeing.
And that's when you have a glimpse of yourself as the doer. And you go, I understand why this took place in my life. I understand why this dynamic had to get created. Then you just have no judgment, no fear, because you see yourself as a player within the other. How can you judge somebody that is you, that you are doing it? You yourself are watching yourself doing it. You can't judge that. You can't be upset with that.
And there's absolute gratitude for a people experience.
Yeah.
There's absolute gratitude and release, and it's
yes,
dropping the
dropping the lock, and the heart opens. Yes.
The rocks.
The heart
Yeah.
opens.
I could
On this
talk
topic,
for a
yes,
long
I know.
time with you. Yeah, I mean, just reconciliation, but you know, I think we gave some great tools that it really begins within, and also pointed out just the harm to oneself when we hold grievances, and um, knowing, you know, love holds no grievances, and we are love. You know, you are love. That's
Absolutely.
the source of it all. So, not to get
Yes.
corny, but that is the truth. So I'm going to close. I want to remind everybody to check out Priya Jain's Practical Spirituality. It is on Spotify, iTunes,
Google
and
Podcasts. Uh-huh.
podcasts, the podcast app. Look at, yes, it's wonderful. Check it out for sure. Check out Seven Chakra Yoga's website for trainings, online teachings, and a
Yes, and if
whole
anybody's interested
community
in the Japji
of,
course that we were talking about, that is coming up on January 11th.
yes,
And if you go to our Instagram or our website, which is seventhchakrayoga.com, you can find links for that, or you can find us on our Instagram, beloved.priya.
it changed my life, and truly
Truly it
is a
is.
roadmap.
Yes.
Truly, it
Yes.
truly is
And
a roadmap. Truly. And
absolutely.
thank you, Priya, for your
God
book.
bless you.
Thank you so much. I encourage you to come on Sunday, 5 o'clock healing chat, and Kundalini yoga class on Thursdays. And thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Priya, again for this time. I will be at the
Yay!
mantra
That's
event.
awesome.
I so anyways, okay. Bye. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful weekend. Don't get the flu.